Hey everyone, quick little announcement here from Fishing the DMV. Our Weekend Warrior membership on Patreon is nearly full. There are only 28 spots still available. Once these spots are gone, they're gone, and the Weekend Warrior tier will be closed to the general public. All members will be locked in indefinitely at a fantastic price point, and they will get all the benefits that they have today, plus any new benefits and discounts that will be added in the future. All Weekend Warriors will receive 5% off their orders to Jake's Bait and Tackle, 10% off their orders to Tiger Crankbaits, 10% off their orders to Catoctin Creek Rod. They'll also gain access to our private Facebook group community, loads of members-only content. And in 2025, there are going to be tournaments that will be given a massive discount specifically to our Weekend Warrior members. Plus, if you sign up for the year right now, you will get 8% off your already fantastically discounted rate to join the Weekend Warrior program. Link in the episode description. Thank you. Quick little announcement. I will have a booth at the Richmond Fishing Expo this coming weekend. Our booth number is 103. We are in the corner near the Casting Kids competition. Now, you can come by and say hi at any point, but I might be doing my job interviewing as many people as possible. But fear not, I do have meet and greet hours. That Saturday, I'll be having a meet and greet from noon until 4 p.m. So from noon until 4 p.m. on Saturday, you can come by the booth 103 and I'll be available there if you want to chit chat, have some fishing stories. And if you're a Patreon member, we have limited Patreon members only stickers. So you can come by the booth anytime, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But if you specifically want to know that I'll be available to chit chat, try to get there around noon on Saturday to 4 p.m. See you there. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I am live from the Raleigh Fishing Saltwater Bass Expo Extravaganza. We're going to be here from today, the 10th, all the way through the 12th. Come on down. You can come see me. They've got a lot of great vendors here. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a live walkthrough. We're going to be going booth to booth. Kind of let me know how the audio is, guys, before we get started here. I got a special treat, a great guest to kind of just be a sampler, a hors d'oeuvre to get us going here as we get started with today. If you guys are just tuning in, we're going to be doing a live walkthrough of booth to booth. But first, we have on a guest favorite. Please introduce yourself to the crowd and what are you doing here?
Yeah, so I'm Logan Anderson. I was on a couple months ago for a Kerr regional that me and my tournament partner finished first and second in. So came down to the expo, had to deliver some jerseys to the NC State Bass Pack who have a booth here. And that's my side business that I kind of showed on there is tournament jersey making. So deliver their jerseys and just enjoying the show.
So we were just talking before we got started here. I did a tier list. I've seen this on other genres on YouTube, whether it's sports, whether it's a multitude of things. I thought that would be kind of fun to do for our area, and it was insane the passion you guys have online about how I ranked it. I did not understand what I got into when I did this. And the first thing is I didn't realize how many lakes there are in the area, but I want your honest opinion here about it. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What would you like to see on the list?
So, my opinion can be taken with somewhat of a grain of salt because I'm a North Carolina guy. I've ventured, south a lot more than I have north, but the big hitters, of course, the legendary lakes, I agree with all of those pretty much. You got, all your tidal rivers, completely agree. It's a treat when I get to fish tidal river coming from Lake Norman. The only real thing I would disagree with, and I don't even know a lot of these lakes, but I think the criteria was a little weird in the list, right? So you're kind of looking at just the fishing, and the fishing is dictated on kind of what happens at that place, right? So it's not just the fishing in a vacuum. You've got all the pressure on it, and that kind of dictates. So you could have a really good lake that never gets fished, and nobody knows about it, which you kind of talked about, or you have a really good lake that gets fished so much that it turns into a bad lake. It's kind of hard to dictate that. And just taking in kind of what you can do with tournaments into account is tough too. So I couldn't have done any better. Don't get me wrong. And I have a personal love of Kerr, so I can't say a whole lot about that. I'm guilty of that one. But
yeah, it's
Kerr is such an interesting beast to me because of you do have these absolute high bag limits, but you also have this thing with it where it's kind of the central hub for all of the fishing tournaments, whether it is regionals, state, high school championships, everything.
For the whole East Coast.
For the whole East Coast. It's absolutely nuts. And then guys, if you want, come on down, say hi to us. We are live from the Fishing Expo. Some of the static that you're hearing is the tanks that are behind me, so that's just part of it. This will get re-uploaded, of course, next week, and the audio will be brilliant. But this is just an door to get you guys to come on down to the show. Of the border lakes, let's start there before we venture more into the Carolinas. Hyco and Mayo. What is the deal with those places? Because are they just not big enough for BFLs? Because they seem like they fall under the radar.
Yeah, they're big enough. But a lot of times facilities, of course, keep you kind of hamstrung, and they're in the middle of nowhere. I think that's the biggest tough thing for them. Kerr has Henderson and Clarksville on both ends, so you get it from both ends. Mayo has Roxborough, or Hyco has Roxborough, and then Mayo has the other town. But they're little towns. They're not going to they don't have like the hotels and stuff for out-of-towners. So it's kind of hard to host an event. But as far as lakes go, they're awesome lakes. I mean, one of my buddies, Austin Woody from ECU, he's had, oh my gosh, up to like 32-pound bags out of Hyco, I think. I think it's Hyco. And then Mayo was putting up like 20 to 27 from like March through the summer, and then they just quit having tournaments. It was like everybody was catching 20 pounds, it seems like. The guys, the top end guys.
And Hyco is the one that does have a warm water discharge,
it's
right?
It's the warm water plant. And it's, from what I've heard, it's got just a pile of fish in it. I mean, just full of fish. So,
and that's the thing. That's why I put it so high compared to Lake Anna. Is Lake Anna is private on the warm water side. Hyco being the only power generated lake in the area, besides, Norman too, but I'm gonna say Hyco's a little bit closer. It just gives you that fun factor, which to me, when I made that list, it's not just about tournament weights, but it's kind of like the fun factor. And that again, guys, like why the reason I put Kerr so low right now is unless you are the guy that can find that mega bag, you're catching 10 pounds. And to me, for where I have to drive to, I can catch 10 pounds so close to me, it doesn't matter. That is, now again, when I'm going to do this list every year, we're going to rethink it to see where the lakes restack. If Kerr goes up in value because the weights get better, 100%.
Which the weights have been really strong this fall for some reason.
Yeah.
Like after our regional, it just went through the moon. I don't know what the deal was, but there's been like multiple 20-pound bags with spots in them, which is crazy.
The spots are getting better,
They're
too.
getting big. I had like a 4-pounder on day 2 of that regional, which is crazy.
How is the bait there with the blueback and everything? Is it getting thicker? Because, compared, let's say, to Murray and Hartwell.
Full bait.
Better?
Yeah. I think that's what's helping it.
Yeah.
So I could see it going up in the list, maybe to like a B. I think it ended up in C, maybe.
Yeah,
So.
I had it like a C-ish area. And that was hard because I compare that to like, do you know Philpott?
I know of Philpott.
Okay. Yeah, that was fun because the amount of people I wanted to put it in.
Everybody defended it. Like,
everyone
it came
defended
like
it.
quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. It was like attacking the Cowboys or something. Like it was insane the defense they got. Clear Lake was the only one that was unanimous. Like 50 people said, just pour concrete in that place and be done with it.
I know how it feels because living at Lake Norman, I will be the first one to shit on Lake Norman. Like, first one. And then if somebody like fights, says something bad about it, I'm the first one to defend it. So,
Where would you put Norman on that list?
Norman's, see, it's got the same problem Kerr does. You look at the tournament results and it's like, oh, these guys are catching 18, especially right now. I mean, Shane LaHue had a 23-pound bag out there the other week with like 2 5.5 to 6-pound largemouth and 3 4+ spots.
Mm-hmm.
You look at that and you're like, that's got to be the greatest lake I've ever seen. And then you go fish it and you catch 90 fish and have 9 pounds, and you say, this is the worst lake I've ever seen. So it's a good tournament lake because it spreads out really well. There's so much structure. There's docks everywhere, slam full of fish, but your average is going to be 10 to 11 pounds. So I couldn't put it any higher than it'd be like between B and C somewhere. It's going to be kind of the same way Kerr is.
So you wouldn't do elite. You wouldn't do legendary status
not
or A.
Not for Norman. The only way you take that in is if you truly just go with like the history of it, and I don't think you can do that. I mean, that wasn't the criteria. So
yeah, because like that was the thing, is like that would always put like the Potomac and some of these places up there, and I didn't think that was fair because it goes through highs and lows.
Yeah.
Like it was a split vote on the Potomac because the Potomac was down about whether that should be legendary or not, and I kind of agree. Like the James was down too compared to where it used to be like 3 or 4 years ago when you could catch 10-pounders left and right.
Yeah,
that was insane.
Which it's weird too because like Norman. Yeah, I'm going to branch down to South Carolina. You can really get out of the DMV. But so you look at the top end tournament weights, and like Norman and Hartwell really aren't that different in what it takes to win their tournaments. Hartwell can fluctuate anywhere from like 14 if it's like a terrible day, or up to 22, 23 pounds. Norman can be the same way. The difference being when you're on Hartwell, you always feel like you're close to that. Like it feels more attainable than it does at Norman. It's hard to even explain that, but it's very odd how a lake that has that high end just isn't as good of a lake as it shows on paper. It's kind of the opposite of some lakes. Some lakes don't look as good on paper as they are. Norman's the opposite. It looks better on paper than I feel like it actually is.
You live on that place, and maybe there's another lake around here that go in this criteria. The one that I tried to amplify on my criteria list is the fun factor. So the Rappahannock River got on there real high because they have not seen a frog before, basically. And so to me, that's a ton of fun way to catch them. Is Norman a fun place to fish for you? Is there a place around here where you're like, ooh, that's actually a place, it's just fun to go because it's my style or something?
So I would say yes. And my evidence for that would be every year I run into more West Virginia anglers at the boat ramp than you would ever believe.
Interesting.
Because you come straight down 77 and you're right on Lake Norman. So all their championships, there's like 20 boat clubs that come to Norman because they're like, well, we can drive 4 hours down here and we know we're going to catch a lot of fish. So it's definitely got a fun factor. I mean, David Dudley said it was his favorite lake in the country, and that man's been everywhere. But they're not coming to say, I caught a 10-pounder, that was really fun. They're coming to say, I caught 100. And that was really fun. Now, they might all be like a pound, but, But the good thing about it is you can catch them literally any way you want, deep, shallow, as long as it's not cold. Top water, moving baits, Demiki rig, A-rig, crankbait, spinnerbait, whatever you want to do, river, bottom end, deep, shallow, whatever. Open water, dirty water, if they have it. Shallow,
that's crazy.
Deep. I mean, you can do – that's why there's so many pros from there, I think.
And that's something I want to hit on too, guys. And again, come on down to the Raleigh Fishing Expo. We're going to be here all day. Just to let you know, the doors open tomorrow and Sunday at 10 a.m. It's delayed an hour because we're going to get hit with one of those once-in-a-lifetime snowstorms. It's been that's a whole other thing. Dude, it's been insanely cold. And I've been wondering like what that's going to do with the bait and everything. I mean, up where I'm at, there's a couple places that are pretty grassy, so you're worried about how the cold will affect it. But to me, it's more of like, how is this going to affect the pre-spawn when you get hit hard like this? I did a winter tournament, an online winter tournament for my Patreon members, and it's funny because it seems like fall almost goes into mid-December, like weather-wise. But now we just got kicked in the teeth, like we're in winter now. Is this going to how's this going to affect pre-spawn, you think, around here?
So it kind of depends, right? So I kind of see North Carolina as the line, and Virginia to an extent. Because they're right the line where stuff doesn't really freeze over normally. Now, backs of pockets will be frozen over after this week, I think. Well, Lake Crabtree coming down here right across from the airport was already frozen over. So who knows what's going to happen there. But it's been, I think 6 years ago when I was in college, Lake Jordan froze over for a little bit. And my buddies went out there to the bridge and like beat their way through the ice. And it didn't really affect the pre-spawn all that much. I think it's the difference between rising from 39 to rising from 45 might delay it a week or something, but you're not really going to notice it because you're always looking for that next pattern. Now, on places where it truly freezes over and thaws out, maybe you notice a bigger difference, but I've never had a lake that you truly freeze over and can't access, so I don't really know how that affects it, but it could knock it back a week or two. But what I really think will happen is I think you'll see some really, really big weights out of Virginia and North Carolina over the next, month.
I think so, too.
Because we haven't I mean, Lake Norman hadn't gotten below 50 degrees in like 3 years. I mean, don't get me wrong. You'll see like pockets, right? But between the hot water discharges, if you're outside of the river, it hadn't really got below 50, maybe like 48, 49. It might get down to like 43-ish. And the last time that happened, Lake Norman was putting out like 11-pound bags and winning with 15, and it started putting out 20s.
Wow.
So I'm wondering how that's going to translate now that everybody's catching 15 to 20 to win. Are we going to see bigger than that? And we already have once. We saw LaHue with that 23.
I like what you said about the weights, because this is the one thing. I mean,
and Lake Anna. I mean, you just had that giant bag come out of there.
And that's a great segue, because when I had Matt on a couple days ago to talk about it, he said like he stumbled upon a shad kill. Yeah. And he said that it really was a linchpin for his day. And last year, I don't remember a lot of shad kills because it was so warm.
I don't think we've had you see one here or there, but I don't think we've had a really good legit shad kill in like a couple years, which, especially talking about Kerr earlier, I don't know what that's going to do to that place, because it's full of shad, but maybe it won't be afterwards. I don't know. But
yeah, time will tell there. I don't want to keep you all day here, boss, but what are a couple of places around here, around Raleigh, that you think people should check out? Not for tournaments, just for fun.
Well, even tournaments or fun, doesn't matter. Jordan is... I was in the NC State Bass Pack, fished Jordan all the time. Love that place. Especially the next, I wouldn't go there till February, to be fair. But starting mid-February through May is my favorite lake in North Carolina. You don't get a ton of bites, but the last 2 years we fished the Angler's Choice down there, both in March. We had a 27-pound bag one day and finished third. We had a 25 last year and finished second. There's just big ones. I've caught 8s, 10s. It's just tons of big ones. They bite really well. It's dirty water, spinnerbait, crankbait, jig. It's not complicated fishing. You might not get a bite all day, but if you do, it's going to be big. So Jordan's really good. There's a lot of smaller lakes, though. You got Buckhorn. If you're an offshore guy, Buckhorn is a great lake. It doesn't have much mapping, which is kind of tough, but it's got giant fish. They're stump oriented, and you can live scope them, crankbait them, whatever, right? If you're an offshore guy, that's a really good place. Kerr can be really good. This in the colder months is when it actually shows out better. But even just the little lakes, man, like Falls is good. I prefer Jordan over Falls. I'm one of the few people who prefers Jordan. But like Lake Mitchie, something like that. It's got giants in it. Lake Wheeler, right in the middle of Raleigh. I had 3 fish for 21 pounds there in like February.
That's insane.
I went to the parking garage to go to class. Had the boat down there. Went to the parking garage, walked up to the ticket booth, and was like, I don't really want to pay $5 to go to class today. Turned around and went and caught 21 pounds on 3.
Oh, my God.
So that's a fun place. Again, it's like all the Raleigh lakes. There, you don't get many bites, but when you do, they're between 4 and 12 pounds, somewhere in that range.
Do they need to do some kind of stocking program, you think, or something like that, just to rejuvenate them?
I don't know if it's that. They're all flow control lakes, and Jordan's the craziest I've ever seen for it. So everybody talks. You remember when MLF was there, right?
Yep.
So everybody seemed like a 30-pound bag on their best 5, and they caught 15 fish, boat flipping giants. It was great. Well, what they didn't tell you is the lake was 15 feet high for 2 months. And then they caught it when it was at the perfect bush level for
storm.
2 days. And me and my buddy fished the Collins 3 days later, and the water was not high anymore. It was perfectly normal level, all water out of the bushes, and it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And it was packed because everybody saw it on MLF. Everybody wanted to come down and catch 30 pounds. Yeah. So it's real particular, and all the Raleigh lakes are kind of the same way. It's real particular about that magic window when it hits, but certain ones are more consistent than others. So like Jordan in the spring, if there's not 300 boats on a 4,000 acre lake or 7,000 acre lake, it can be really, really good laydowns and rock and bridges and that kind of stuff. But the pressure can always get to it. So the other one is Gaston. Gaston's really good in the cold weather.
It's a sleeper place where I just wish a lot of people I have on or the comment section is about pressure. And I think that's subjective, of course. I don't get into that argument, but Okay, well, then you got to be willing to go to other places and not have the BFLs go to Kerr for the 200th year in a row 38 times. And you have a lake that's almost, chat, you can help me out, I think it's almost as big as Smith, or maybe a little bigger. Yeah, it's perfect size for a BFL, or potentially, God forbid, a Toyota or an Open.
Well, they used to have them before as the homeowners. What's the deal there?
I hear it's the marina. Now, here's the issue I have with this: is people say like, "Oh, the boat ramp sucks." Well, it's like, have you been to High Rock? I mean,
they quit going out of Tamarack because apparently the restaurant got pissed at all the bass boats.
Really?
So, because Tamarack, you would launch out of Tamarack and they had a decent parking lot, and then literally like 50 yards under the bridge was a wildlife ramp. So it was like, you kind of pick your poison, whichever one had the shortest line at the time. Now they started going out Southmont, which is on the other side of the lake, and it's got a bigger parking. It can handle it, but the lake is just not real big. So especially if the water's up. I mean, we kind of talked about that before we came on. When the water comes up at High Rock and you can't get under the bridges, you're toast. I mean, you got how big is High Rock? Like 10,000 acres, 12,000 acres?
It is 13 to 15.
Okay.
Something
so
right
you go
there.
from 13 to 15, you shut off Abbott's Creek and Flat Swamp.
Yeah.
You cut out at least 5,000 of that.
Oh, easily.
And probably the two hottest fishing creeks as far as absorbing boats.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny there, and this is another thing, because I don't, again, guys, I promise we're going to be going booth to booth here in a minute, but
I'm taking up his time.
It's the SAV thing. There's so many in some of these lakes where it's like the secret no one wants to talk about. Like you're trying to like smuggle drugs across the border. It's like, oh, I found hydrilla. It's where we're going to get these departments, whether it's Virginia that's gotten better with it or North Carolina, to be like, maybe we should just let it grow and not kill it on site. And I'm hoping we're getting to that cultural shift where they're going to let it be.
So Norman actually has eelgrass in it now.
Wow.
For
awesome.
Probably the first 2 or 3 miles out of the dam. And, it's spread to a couple pockets where I don't know if people have relocated or whatever, but I don't know why. But because they've had it before and they've nuked it, right? They've killed the crap out of it. For some reason, they haven't touched it. Or they've tried to and it hadn't worked because it is all over the bottom end. High Rock had a little hydrilla in it, but the wildlife took care of that because it was right at the boat ramp. And it was easy to find. So they took care of that one. But I think what we were talking about, what would help these lakes not be only giant bass, would be a vegetation, right? So anywhere you go with that vegetation, your floor raises. Your ceiling doesn't change a lot of times, but your floor raises. For the people that know about Shearon Harris, the reason MLF only goes there, because they've been there twice or 3 times now. Yeah. I think twice. They went during the spawn both times. It's because after they killed the grass, you don't see those, they had 50-pound bags come out of Shearon Harris 10 years ago. And in 2016, they nuked the grass. And it's still got bank grass, so you can still, bed fish. And there's still plenty of fish in there. They're getting caught more now with live scope, of course. But it's a completely different lake. Like, it used to be that the guys that went there raved about it because it was a 4,000-acre lake, and you could just catch them and catch them and catch them. And it held up to the pressure, and then that just went away with killing the grass. So that's just how it goes. It is. It's hard to convince, and I've had me and William Frazier with Bass Nation have had arguments in this booth area multiple times about murdering spotted bass and murdering grass and all kinds of stuff, but it's a balance. Like, if you got a halfway decent lake and they want to kill the grass in it, it's going to suck for the fishermen, but the homeowners, like, they could go all the way and try to kick you off the lake completely, so kind of got to take it with what it is, Now, I'm not familiar with Anna as much. I don't know that I've ever even been there. But, like, that's kind of the vibe you get from Gaston. Norman's starting to get that way a little bit, where homeowners are really not loving bass boats ripping by at 7 a.m. every day out of the week. So, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that gets up there and screams, like, we don't want to kill this grass and all, when if they start yelling and screaming with all the money they have, I might not get to go fishing. So yeah, I'm trying to moderate myself.
And it's hard about, like, how do we get along with the lakes that we have. Luckily with Lake Anna, the DNR guy that runs that place, he's allowing water willow. Water willow is exploding.
Water willow helps. I think that's what keeps Gaston good, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's had spots in it for a while, and the largemouth have stayed extremely healthy, which you see a little bit in Norman. It still takes largemouth to win tournaments, of course, mixed into your bag, but you don't see the prolific nature of them like you do at Gaston. They haven't just eliminated the largemouth, which is big. And if we could do Murray is kind of the same way. It doesn't have spots in it, but I think it's held up to the pressure well because it has water willow and stuff in it. It just helps a lot keep those shallow fish.
Yeah, and it had a hydrilla. It had a resurgence a couple years ago.
It's got a lot of different. It's got a lot of different vegetation in it right now. It's kind of weird. I'm going down there next weekend for the BFL.
I was there in 2015, I think, for the national championship. There was not as much grass as there was. I think when the elites went there, 2 years ago? Is now that the elites were there? It was 1 or 2.
I think they've been like every year for the last couple of years. I think they went last year because I remember Kyle Patrick fell in the water, and he's a rookie. So
yeah. There's a great drone shot of him with I think it looked like a Cibola, honestly. Yeah. I think that's a bait I wish they'd bring back.
The Lake Murray is a strange place because during the herring spawn, when they always go there, you will pull up on a point and there will be 55-pounders sitting there and you will not make them bite. It is the most infuriating place, but there are so many giants in it. And when you have a day where it's good, so me and Louis Minetti went down there, and Trevor Topkin, who's one of our friends from New Jersey. We all went down there the first day of the MLF when they had it 2 years ago, and we didn't know they were there because we hadn't been keeping up with MLF. So we show up and we're like, what are all these rat boats running around? And we're in a rat boat. So we're like trying to fish, and then it's like, well, we can't get in their way. So we just go striper fishing during the herring spawn. Ooh. And dude, you catch one bass every like 6 stripers, and as long as you're not tournament fishing, you're so happy. Like we caught them, top waters and flukes and swim baits, didn't matter, and you just stomp them all day. It's so fun.
That's such a cool place. All right, we got one question for you here before we're going to be switching it up. Is what do y'all think about the elites going to Albemarle Sound?
That's kind of funny. We were actually talking about that before we turned the camera on. That's going to be a really fun tournament. So I have a couple guys that fish there. One guy that I fished with in college and one that I fished with on the opens. I traveled with him. He lives in Virginia Beach, so he's close to Back Bay. And he said in the Pasquotank and Back Bay, so 2 years ago before the Kerr Open, he just came back and spent some time getting ready. He went to the Sound. He had one day, he was kind of getting dialed in. He had 20 pounds. The next day, he had 27 with a 9 out of the Pasquotank. And he said Back Bay is also very good. My prediction, I think it gets one to Alligator River. From what I've heard and what I've seen, that's where the biggest concentration of really big fish are. But I don't know their restrictions. People could run all the way to the Roanoke. That'd be a haul. But Roanoke's got some really big fish in it. It's got a lot of tournament fish replaced. Chowan's really good. But they all that whole area kind of fishes the same. It's cypress trees, dirty water. It's not tidal. Tides might affect it. If somebody on here knows, feel free to correct me. But very little tide swing. And I think it's because Chesapeake Bay has the full opening. And so the Potomac and James can fluctuate, whereas that sound only goes through like the Oregon Inlet and the Hatteras Inlet. So it's got 2 inlets, both of them a good distance away. I don't think it might fluctuate a little bit out of the Pasquotank. But
so you're talking a foot versus like the Delaware where it's like 25 feet or something.
Probably
crazy.
Less than a foot. Like inches at best.
Interesting.
In the Roanoke, you don't ever even feel it. It's just ripping current the whole time. And Chowan, I've had people tell me both on Chowan. I've been there and I've never seen the water raise or lower throughout the day like you do at James. And I don't see any real current unless you get up the river. But I've had guys tell me that they've looked at the tide charts and could see a change in the bite. But if you pulled up a tide chart and went to Lake Norman, you'd probably see differences in the bite. So I don't know how much truth there is in that. But out where they are, they'll probably see a little bit of tide. But it's not near as much as what people that have never been there think, right? So people that are from out of town just look at the map and they're like, oh, it'll be like the James. Probably a 2-foot tide swing at the James, roughly.
Something like that.
But it rips. Yeah. I mean, it rips. And that place is not like that. It's much more like Blackwater, just still. Cypress trees, shallow grass a little bit. It'll be a fun time. A lot of spinner baits, a lot of buzz baits. I'm sure that time of year somebody will catch them scoping, of course. But I mean, that's how we got one at the Chowan was scoping. So
final 4-day wait.
It depends on the wind. If they get 4 calm days, it could take over 100. If they get 4 windy days, it could take 60. It'll be more than 60, but 75 to 90.
That's going to be an absolute.
I'm gonna call 85.
85.
I'll call
All
85.
Right. You heard it here. We got 85 guys. So, boss, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. I need to get you and Jake on the show again just to get a revamp for your season.
Yeah, we'll come on.
We have a chance. That'd be fun. Guys, we're going to take a quick 9-minute break. The stream is going to stay up. I'm just going to play a commercial while we switch over to our booth-to-booth setup. All right, we'll see you soon here. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.